We're going to hear from Director Demetrius Starling from Michigan. And I'm going to let you further introduce yourself, but I just want to say thank you for being here. I mentioned this earlier with the Attorney General from Connecticut. I live in Wyoming, and so I don't necessarily have high expectations that my legislative leaders at the state or federal level we're going to show up for this event. But to have leaders in other states do it still means a lot, even for me, to see that there are people that have our back. So we're going to have you come up, and then if you want to request to share slides, we should be able to let you do that as well. But thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Elliot. And I got to tell you, after listening to Tyler talk, first and foremost, I'm energized, and I really feel old to hear from a 20-year-old, from a guy who just turned 53 a couple of days ago. But thank you all for having me, Demetrius Starling. I'm the Senior Deputy Director for Children's Services with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Happy Pride. I use he, him pronouns. And I'm just, really pleasure and honor to be here today with this group. And if I can just share my document here, please let me know if you can see the PowerPoint.
It's loading. Yes, it's in the back end view, but we see it.
Okay, all right. So basically, this is I want to run through some of the historical things that we have witnessed here in Michigan, and also some of the work that we have here in children's services and across our department, to be quite frank. And I also want to give a big shout out and kudos to our senior leadership and executive leadership. When you think about Governor Gretchen Whitmer and our Director Hertel, they've been huge proponents of the work that we're doing with our LGBTQI plus families. So our mission, of course, is to make sure that folks don't feel marginalized in our communities, no matter what your race, sex, religion, national origin, or gender identity or expression is. And that's been extremely important and paramount for my team and I since I've been in this position. I've been in the Senior Deputy Director position now for 5 years, been with the department now for 25. And this has been a paramount subject for my team and I for a number of reasons, because we know that our families have been hugely impacted by our systems, our policies, and our statutes, and not in a good way all the time. And we've seen that even highlighted more in the last couple of years. So it's incumbent on myself and my leadership team to lean in and do better and be better for folks who feel as if they're not a part of our respective communities. And what you'll
Director
see here,
Starling, could I just
yes.
ask if you're able to, in the bottom right, press the little presentation button, like it looks like a little slideshow, a little
All
bit over
right.
right there. One over, other way. That one. It should show us without. There we go.
Oh,
Perfect. You're great. There you go. Of
thank you.
course.
So this is a set of our priorities that we've enacted for the last several years relative to children's services. The one that I really want to highlight is ensuring equitable practices in child welfare. So when you think about some of the things that my team and I have heard directly from youth who live expertise, LGBTQI kids that have been impacted by our systems and traumatized by our systems, it was important to lift up and honor their voices as we reenacted or revisited policy and statute to make sure that we had a keen focus on what our 21st century child welfare system should look like. So in the early 2000s, much of the support for trans and non-binary individuals really came from a lot of our grassroots organizations in the Metro Detroit area, like Transgender Michigan and TG Detroit. They've been amazing thought partners for my team and I to really build that space, that capacity, and education around across child welfare and our economic stability realms. A major turning point came in 2022 when the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that the state's Civil Rights Act protects LGBTQ plus individuals, including trans and non-binary people. This legal recognition marked a really significant step towards institutional support and protection. And the reason why that's important is because it gave me the basis and foundation to have really profound discussions with both internal and external stakeholders around this work, and also build that capacity, not only from a training perspective, but also a resource capacity perspective. So when folks were doing their yearly plans in regards to how we, build in or bake in some of the services needed for our trans and non-binary people, we really leaned on some of the language in our Michigan Supreme Court ruling, and also use that as a foundation in a lot of our discussions with those particular leaders. So as far as a community empowerment and pride perspective, we continue to support and be a part of some of the Pride festivals. I was trying to get approval from folks to use their name, image, and likeness. We just had an event 2 weeks ago where we showed up for the parade. Director Hertel, Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, and Governor Whitmer showed up. And, they were there for our folks while we were at the parade, which was amazing to see that level of support from some of our politicians. And we've infused some of this work that we've done with other folks like Transfusion in Dearborn, that we're helping kind of build more visibility and capacity in some of our communities that were not used to having this level of visibility in the past. Despite some of the progress, trans people in Michigan, unfortunately, particularly Black and Latina trans women, still face unfortunate violence and systemic barriers. Advocates like Michelle Fox Phillips and organizations like the Gender Identity Network Alliance have been amazing partners for us, and they've emphasized the importance of visibility and community engagement as tools for change. And just recently, we had some discussion with the NAACP about how they can play a more instrumental role in some of the work that we're doing here with our LGBTQI plus families. Barriers to identify recognition. We had to go through a lot of barriers and really kind of work with some of our legislative folks and also external stakeholders in regards to really streamlining some of our processes and getting activists to help us continue to push for reforms to make these processes more accessible and affirming. So in short, Michigan has made meaningful strides, but the journey is far from over. The state's trans and non-binary communities have led the way through advocacy, visibility, and sheer determination. So I know this slide is a little bit jumbled, but I just think that it's important for me to really lift up some of the work that Children's Services specifically has done over the last several years. And a lot of this started in earnest because there were stakeholders that were pushing back on us in regards to some of the things that we saw in our stipulated order for our MISEP, and also some of the things that we were trying to accomplish relative to ensuring that folks that were trying to get licensed with private agencies had the same level of protections within our department. So we started statewide training initiatives around our sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression training modules for all of our staff, both public and private. And these trainings focus on affirming identity, building safe environments, and supporting our youth and foster care and other systems. We've also made sure that folks are doing the required training in regards to inclusive engagement, action about sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. It's a 4-hour training required for all public and private children's services staff. It's something that not only our first line staff are doing, but also our leaders are doing as well. So myself and my leadership team have also participated in these trainings. The training focuses on terminology used to describe sexual orientation, background information on the prevalence of individuals with diverse SOGI in the general population, outcomes that we expect in our systems as we engage on a higher level with SOGI youth, and some of the regional and statewide resources that are available for youth that were not quite evident or realized in the past. And this also helps us in our recruitment process as we look to expand our footprint across the state for folks who want to be foster or adoptive parents. Some additional accomplishments. We really have a really robust boots on the ground kind of mindset in Michigan, where we work with Equality Michigan, Ruth Ellis Center, and Stand with Trans. These groups provide everything from legal aid and housing to mental health services and family education for our youth, especially our transitional age youth. So when you think about 15, 16, 17-year-old youth who are up against it and are transitioning to adulthood, those are the ones that we saw through our analysis struggle with some of those job readiness programs, access to mental health services, access to housing. So in tandem with Equality Michigan and Ruth Ellis and others, they've really helped us really tap into the need for some of those resources. The policy and advocacy groups, organizations like Transgender Michigan and the ACLU of Michigan actively advocate for our inclusive policies and anti-discrimination protections and public education to foster a more equitable environment for trans and non-binary individuals. And I'm also pleased to announce that we just entered into a relationship, an MOU, with the Department of Education to also be a partner with us in this work. So when we think about some of the challenges that our non-binary and transgender youth have when it comes to education and getting ready for vocational or college environments, they have stepped up and stated that they want to be a part of this, of building this ecosystem to make sure we help these young folks out. And again, the things that really bring our folks a lot of joy is participating in some of the local pride and visibility efforts. So we have our events up like the Up North Pride in Traverse City, which is absolutely beautiful. If you guys ever want to go to any part of Michigan, make sure you go to Traverse City. And programming with the Salute Center in Lansing, which again helps increase visibility, celebrating our diversity and building community connections across the state. So one of the things that that really has been, I believe, a focal point for us and a pillar of work is in regards to adhering to our My Family Together, Families First. So that is an amazing program that we lifted up around 2022 because of some of the pushback that my team and I were getting from other stakeholders that didn't feel as if they wanted to work with our non-binary and transgender folks. So we built some of these standalone programs to continue to honor their voices and make sure they understood that we weren't going anywhere. So enhancing or funneling more monies and resources into our family reunification program, our Family Together Building Solutions program, that are all inclusive of working with the caregivers and the youth who identify as LGBTQI was extremely important. These eligibility programs really increase the capacity for our folks across different parts of our department whenever folks have this sense of disparity in our systems. So when you think about housing instability, food insecurity, lack of access to mental health services, the My Family Together folks are specifically aimed at providing some of those permanency measures and really tapping down on some of those needs that that particular demographic sometimes is kind of boxed out of. So a part of that also is making sure that our folks are trained on how to engage and work with those families. Some of those trainings are optional, but most of those are mandatory, have been made mandatory by myself. We have what is called the SOGI interview tools, which has been instrumental in how we engage our trans and non-binary youth affected by our systems. The questions in the tool are sensitive in nature and should be addressed in a very respectful, very non-judgmental manner. A youth SOGI information should not be shared in writing or verbally beyond what's necessary to keep the youth safe and to make appropriate service referrals and placement assignments needed for that youth. So this is again a module that's trained across public and private. This is something that I have testified in front of our Michigan legislators and our federal court monitors for them to ensure that this is a paramount subject for myself and the department, and also part of our stipulated orders as we try to move towards exit out of a consent decree. This is something that's, again, a paramount focus for a handful of folks within my department, specifically in the out-of-home Services Bureau, to make sure that we're meeting youth where they're at. We're very cognizant of the trauma that has been impacted on them by our systems, but also to meet them in a very non-judgmental space. Also, we have developed a practice guide for working with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and two-spirit youth in Michigan's child welfare system. It is a huge document, Elliot, so I can definitely drop it in an email to you. I don't think that folks will be interested.
That's perfect,
It's a snoozer in some areas, but I'll definitely share it with you. But it's been such an amazing tool for us to help us work around some of the barriers that we had in regards to how to encounter or engage with folks from that demographic that are part of our child welfare systems, including prevention, CPS, foster care, adoption, and juvenile justice system. The practice guide is intended to increase awareness, knowledge, and skills of our child welfare staff and administrators so they effectively and competently meet the needs of our youth and our families. And so the question arises, why, and I've been asked this question to my face by certain folks, why is a practice guide needed for this population? And this is the response I give them. Our LGBTQI2 youth are members of our racial and ethnic cultures, communities, and religions. Violence and bullying targeted these individuals occur on a regular basis. These individuals experience discrimination and oppression that challenges their well-being. Youth who identify as LGBTQI2 and reside in out-of-home care are especially vulnerable to discrimination and stigma based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. Therefore, it is critical that youth are placed in settings that are aware of and prepared to meet their needs. Although well-intended child welfare professionals and caregivers do not always know how to effectively work with youth and advocate for youth who identify as LGBTQI2S to ensure positive outcomes. And lastly, I think this is one of the most important things that, when I go out and I speak publicly and within the department, I demonstrate this model from the top down. And so they understand that this is embedded and baked into everything that I do. It's not a fly-by-night thing. And even, in our current political environment, I know folks have asked me flat out, what do I think will change as a result of what's coming down from like a federal mandate perspective? And I always answer the same, it won't. This is a part of our ethos. This is a part of what's important to us from a personal and professional perspective. And as long as I have breath in my lungs and able to do this work, best believe that I am going to stand with my non-binary and transgender youth and families in the state of Michigan. So I know that was a lot in a nutshell in a couple of minutes, Elliot, but definitely stick around. I can stick around if folks have any questions or things they want to lift up. Thank you.
Yeah. One quick question before we go to our next speaker, but I've been asking everybody, which is, what do you do for joy when you're not working? What do you do to make yourself happy?
Yeah, so one of the things I know Minnesota is the state that's called the state of 10,000 lakes, but I don't know if they've been to Michigan. And if you ever had an opportunity to go in the UP and go to places like Presque Isle and Picture Rocks and Traverse City, you know that we have some beautiful lakes. I'm a Cancer, so I love to be by the water. I love to be in my boat and fishing and just enjoying the splendors and beauty of our amazing state.
I love that. That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for sort of just like, making it clear that you stick with our community. I think it's really important for people to hear and see that, especially in leadership roles. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elliot. Much appreciated.